We're back. Hi, everybody. Doing all right today? Tolerable? Okay, that's positive. Anybody do anything interesting over the weekend? Nobody did anything interesting over the weekend? You worked?
I had strep.
What's that?
I had strep.
You had strep. Are you over it?
I am.
Okay, good. That's a positive. Anybody else? Nope. I went to Nashville. That was fun. I played a songwriter round on Thursday, and then I played another songwriter event on Friday. And I played with a guy who was the lead guitarist who's played with a lot of famous country people and Taylor Swift. It's as close as I've ever gotten to Taylor Swift. That one of his credits is guitar work on one of her songs. I don't even know which one. But that was fun, and then drove back. So here we are. What else happened last week? It was a busy week last week. I played at the fair last Tuesday. That was fun. I made a video out of it. I might show that if we start talking about videos today. But that's enough about me. I'm happy to be back here in week 6. Is that where we are? Do we know? Like that's where you don't know? Do you know how to find out? Well, what I always do is go look at our RSU stuff. You know what? It may not let me back in here because, well, forget it. I'm pretty sure it's week 6. So we're almost halfway through the semester, just 2 more weeks, and then we'll be on the back side of the semester. And we're doing very well in this class. We're making some progress. I think just about everybody who's going to be keeping up with the class has done all the necessary speeches so far. So I'm happy about that. And we're getting ready to move on to the next one. I don't think there's anybody that has to make one up here. So with that, we're going to start talking about the next one. I want to talk about my grading for a second. You're all doing, everybody who's here is doing pretty well, as far as I know, from what I remember. And over the years, I've become less of a points-driven person and more of what we call a holistic grader, meaning I take everything into account. So you can think A, B, C, D if you want, but in my head, D to me means needs improvement. Close to failing, if you want to think of it that way, but really needs improvement. To me, a C is really developing. You're getting there, but you're average. Proficient would really be considered a B. You got enough accomplished to get the B, okay. And then that concept of excellence, or as well as it can be done, is what you might consider the A range. So I do think in terms of A, B, C, D, but I also think in terms of those markers. Proficient, excellent, developing, needs improvement. So when you see it, I'm not taking off a point for every I'm not taking off a point for speaking too quickly. I'm not taking off a point for not moving your hands. But I am trying to make all those notes. So if I feel like you're doing a very good job or an excellent job, that's all fine, but you also see some things down there that you can improve on, because there's always something that we can improve on our whole life, from beginning to end. So I'm happy with how this is going, and the next thing that we're going to do is jump into process analysis. This is essentially turning you into a teacher or trainer. Okay? Oh, I see you guys can see that. I'm not ready for them to see that yet. I don't want them to be distracted by it yet, Radar. Let's just get that off the screen for now. Thank you. It works. That's a good thing. So now we know that the desk cam works because you're going to be bringing something in that you're going to be demonstrating part of on the webcam of some type, usually. So when we talk about a process, what you're going to do is be teaching us or training us how to do something. It doesn't have to be that elaborate. You only have 5 minutes. So things that we've already talked about, a few of you could use some of those things. If you brought something in that was an item that did something, and you want to show us how it really works, then that could potentially be possible. Just what popped in my head was Kim's rice cooker. Okay, now I'm not sure you couldn't make rice in 5 minutes, I don't think, but something like that you could show us how it works. A process is a systematic series of actions that leads to a specific result. And so what you do in your analysis is take us through those steps. So I have an outline for you I'm going to pass out today. What I want you to be thinking about, just to get started, is what are 5 things that you can do? What are 5 things that you could teach us? And the reason I say 5 things is because I want you to have a list to pick from. So if you're instantly going, oh, I already know what I'm going to do, okay, well, that's fine. But by generating a list, a brainstorming list, it's giving you some options. So if I were tasked with this assignment right now, I would most likely go to the guitar, because I play guitar every day. I've learned to play it at a medium level, I guess you'd say, and I know enough about it to teach someone who doesn't know anything about it how to get started. And in 5 minutes, probably couldn't do too much, but I could get a person started with even just one finger. If I were to talk about some other things I know how to do, songwriting. So I've become a fairly competent songwriter for the kinds of songs that I write. And that's why I was in Nashville last Thursday and Friday, was I went to a songwriter circle so I could share my songs with other established songwriters and learn from them. And then get feedback from them as well. One of the other things I do every week is I call football play-by-play for the radio. So every Friday, that's why I was in Nashville last Friday. We had a bye week, so we were off last Friday. So whenever I have a Friday night off, I'm ready to go do something, and so I decided to go out there. And when I call high school football play-by-play, not only do I call the game for the radio, but I'm shooting the video at the same time. Not only that, I'm on the field, whereas most play-by-play people are up in the press box. But during COVID, I didn't want to go in the press box. So I started calling the game from the field with a remote headset. And after a couple games, I thought, I bet I can shoot video down here at the same time. So it's a little bit challenging to call the play while shooting it at the same time, so that eventually when I get home, I can edit all that down to some highlights that'll be ready by Monday morning and people can watch. So that's a whole process, and just calling play-by-play by itself is a process. But calling it using a video camera at the same time to try and get the action is something else. Sometimes the play-by-play suffers because I'm shooting it, or sometimes the shooting suffers because I'm focusing on describing it. Because people on the radio can't see it, so they need full details. As I mentioned early in the class, I've been in radio since I was 16. I'm 64 now. That's almost 50 years of working in the radio business. So I have a lot of thoughts about how I select music for our station or a format. So that would be something I could talk about. Take a few songs and decide if they are appropriate or inappropriate for a particular format. On the more practical level of things, we were talking about attire being out. You know, I've had people on this particular speech do the speech on how to change a tire, because everybody needs to know how to be able to do that. Otherwise, you have to get other people to do it. So something like that could be okay. I've had a lot of athletes come in, and they've shown how to do a penalty kick, how you set up for a penalty kick in soccer, how you play pepper in softball or baseball, the appropriate way to shoot a free throw, these athletic type things. And those are all fine too. Last year, we had a woman come in with a dog. She brought her dog and a clicker. And she showed how she uses a clicker to train her dog. So if you go click, the dog stops or sits. 2 clicks is sit, 1 click is stop, 3 clicks is come here. And the way that she has done that is with treats. And it's an accepted way of training a dog. I didn't know that. But it was really interesting to watch her do that. As I've mentioned, we've had other fake animals come in that aren't real animals because people show animals. So they'll bring in a stuffed cow or a stuffed pig and say, well, here's what we do when we show a cow or a pig. And here's how you do it. Well, that's close to the informational essay or analysis, speech we just did. I'm also teaching Comp 1. What's interesting is we're kind of going along the same way as speech is. So informational speech, informational essay, process speech, process essay. So it's interesting how it's going. What's going to really be interesting is when we get to the argumentative one or the persuasive one, where you try to convince us of something that might be somewhat controversial. I thought of, I think it's David who's not here today. He was talking about MMA last week, and I've seen students do, how do you do a wrestling takedown? And so the guy had another guy and he showed how to take him down. How to fish. I've seen that before. Someone brings in a fishing pole and they say, well, here's what you need to do, and here's the different kinds of bait you can use, and here's some good strategy for fishing. So this is going to explain how something is done, how something works, or potentially how something is made. So Kendall over here was showing us the Hello Kitty beading thing that he had. I don't know exactly what that was going to be for, but beading is a process. And you can't like teach all of beading in 5 minutes, but you could potentially show how beading works and how you at least get set up on it, whether you bring a loom or however you do it. So you want to be thinking about this in your head. You want to inform your audience as to how this might benefit them. You want to let us know the process by which we could also do this very same thing. So it's really two things. One, you can inform us to how it works. The other is you're teaching us how to do it. And when you teach somebody how to do something, it takes a little longer than just showing somebody how it works. So think about that as kind of a merging of those two. We will need a visual aid. You need to have something that shows us what you're doing. It shows us an example of how whatever it is you're showing works. And that's going to be important. So you want to have, I'll go to my outline here for you all. And let's go ahead and put that on our screen. And we can do it front and back whenever you're ready. And I have some other ones here. Go ahead and just start handing these out. There you go. Okay, there should be enough in here. Okay, I'm just going to start. Just kind of pass those that way, or walk them around, or whatever you need to do. So I put this outline together that we'd have something to go by, but it doesn't have to be perfectly like this. You can bring your own individuality to it. But let's take a look. Now, like I've said in the past, we're past introducing yourself. Hi, my name is so-and-so. We know at this point where your name is. But we're not past the point of what we all do in our speeches, which is to use an attention getter of some type. So any kind of question, fact, or anecdote, we already talked about that a little bit earlier, how you might get that attention. Then you briefly explain what process you are going to be analyzing and why it's important to us, how it could benefit us one way or the other. And then just like the other speeches, you preview your main points, and then you start getting into the steps. So first step, why this is necessary? Well, if you're going to make some rice, you need something to make it in. Well, actually, you need some rice first. Then you need something to make it in. And of course, one thing I would say about this process analysis is there's special language that goes along with whatever it is you're going to be teaching us about. So this is another good time for you to realize that there may be a term that we don't know that you need to explain to us. So I think Corey did the Fahrenheit 451 thing, and she explained what a dystopian environment was, which is an authoritarian environment where everything is controlled and so forth. So she didn't just breeze by that word, she explained it to us. So any special term that you have is going to need to be explained. Then it's just the same old steps. But then I always think it's important to remember your mistakes. Here's what you can do wrong. Or if you don't plug it in right, this can happen. What are the potential pitfalls of this process? You put your parking brake on before you start trying to change your tire. That way it doesn't roll over on you when you're working on it. Then you get to your next critical step, and then you can always provide a tip of some type or another that would give us some more information, but also might be a way we could get by it a little bit easier. So think in terms of what you can do or tell us that will be some insight into that particular subject. So for example, music and the guitar is always kind of complicated, but there are a lot of, quote, tricks to being able to play a lot fast if you just learn those tricks and learn what they're about. Oh, it's over here. Okay, in addition to that, I see we're looking, hold on, let me back up here. It's always tricky to use this web camera because it's backwards. So provide a tip or trick to make it easier. Any alternatives that there might be? Is there another way to do this? Is there some other way to approach this subject? Then you cover any final touches. How do you know it's finished? How do you know this process is over? You have a fish on the hook. That's when you know it's over. Any final considerations? Checking for quality or any threads hanging out? I had a woman once do a quilt. She brought her quilt in and she talked about that. And I think it was maybe Kendall again. You were talking about somebody beating but leaving a mistake in it as a symbol that nobody's perfect, only the creator's perfect. And so that mistake is left in on purpose. Well, if a person's doing a high-end quality check, be like, well, that bead's out of order because they don't know the cultural context from which it comes. Then when you get to your conclusion, you re-summarize these main steps. You restate the key steps in the process. And then, as I wrote on several of your critique sheets, go local to global. Okay, you're doing this right here, but what's the wider application? And that's something I try and get everybody to think about. Then that final call to action, encouragement, to say, you can do this too. And then, of course, any questions, you might get a few, and then thank you and out. Okay, come back to me, Radar, if you would, please. So, what questions do you have about this whole process? I don't know where, get one of those to Jesse somewhere. Jesse, pick up one of those pieces of paper back there on the back table back there. That's your outline. And we just went through that. This is going to be your process analysis speech. Now, personally, because of the way the class is set up, I don't do a whole lot of lecturing because I like you doing the speeches. And I like for there to be two. So I like a practice one and a final one. That way you can get some feedback on your speech and then do it again and refine it. Because I really want to reinforce that rehearsal aspect of anything that you're going to do that's going to be in front of the public or your peers. So I think the way we're going to do this, I even want to do a brainstorming one. So on Wednesday, what I'd like to do is just a very brief intro. I want everybody to come up here and say, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. Here's how I'm going to approach it. You won't get a critique sheet back on it, but I will check it off in my grade book that you did it. So those of you who are watching at home, you need to get in here and at least do your proposal. So this Wednesday we'll do a proposal, and then next Monday and Wednesday we'll get started, because that gives you more. I didn't want you to just have 2 days to think about this. So I'm gonna give you till next Monday. And then we'll go in the, let me make sure we have the order here. Let's see. Did you go first last time, Marianne? Or were you on the second time around? You were half. Did we start? We started with Kelsey. Is that how it started?
I think so, with David.
Okay, so it was supposed to be David, then you? Okay.
I didn't go first for the practice one, but I think I did go first for the final.
I think you just went first on your day, is how it went.
Yeah.
But as far as the,
Probably why. Yeah.
so let's just take it from the top. That's what we'll start next Monday. So that'd be you first on Monday. And then Jasmine, Grace, Caden, Alyssa, Bailey, that's EIGH. You're EIGH? That's you, okay. Kendall, Jesse, Hunter, who's not here, and David, with Kelsey on the bubble. That's kind of how that is. But that should work well. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So hopefully we'll get them all in. You know what happens is if you do get bounced to the next class period, then we just start with you and then jump to the next ones. But if possible, I think we can get them all in the 2 class periods. If not, we'll just move somebody to the following Monday. So that's how we'll do it, but that's not till next Monday. This, go ahead.
What exactly were you looking for on the proposal?
On the proposal? Yeah, what you're going to do. Yeah, what your topic is. What you plan on doing. What your purpose is for this whole thing. And that's really it. That shouldn't take too long. Minute or 2, however. That gives me a chance to find out what you're up to and ask you a couple questions before you actually start. Or if somebody else could ask questions. So I had a kid come in one day and he did trading card grading. And that was his whole thing, was like, I'm going to show you how to grade a trading card to know if it's, very good plus, or is it very good plus, or is it just very good, or is it good, or is it like not good? He had all these different rankings. And I thought it was interesting. So nothing is really off the table with regard to what you want to do. Process analysis. Yep.
So do we have to have the actual object, or can we have a picture of it?
Well, on Wednesday, you can just have a picture if you just want to show that. You don't necessarily have to have your visual, but it could be good. But on the actual speech, you want the thing, whatever it is. Yeah, literally, the guy brought in a tire, and he brought in the jack and everything to show us how to do that. Fishing poles come in here. I like when all the stuff comes in. Now, musical instruments are fine too. If you're feeling that, that's okay. So if you're finally ready to demonstrate and play some, okay. If not, that's okay too. But we do want to see how things work and how you explain how things work. And what's the point of all this anyway? You are the future educated leaders of our society. As a result of that, you're the future managers in our society. As a result of that, you're going to wind up having to tell people what to do and or training them and or how to do it. When you get your job somewhere, most likely you're going to get trained by a person coming in there. And then as time goes on, you will be the experienced one, and you're going to train somebody else. So how do you do that? Well, that's what this is about, is making sure that you're firm on being able to explain to someone how you do something, whatever it is. Okay, any other questions? Nope. Okay, well, I have a part of a speech I'd like for you to watch, but I'm going to show you one other thing. We'll go back to the screen here. To our computer screen. Do I need to move it over to the other side to get it to show up? Let's go that way. And we'll put it on the front one and we'll be good. when you get that situated. Awesome. And let's see if I can make it bigger with Control Plus. You know that, right? Control Plus. Yay, it works. So I went to ChatGPT just before we started class, and I just went, here, create an outline for a 5-minute speech on how to check blood pressure and explain why it's important. ChatGPT. So every one of you can do the exact same thing. This is the free version. I didn't even log into my subscription version. And it immediately says, well, here's a clear, well-structured 5-minute speech outline on how to check blood pressure and why it's important. It gives it a title. Know your numbers, how and why to check your blood pressure. And without me prompting it, it knows you need an attention grabber. Did you know the high blood pressure is called a silent killer because it often shows no symptoms until it's too late? It's making this an important, critical subject for us to know about. Whether you're young or old, checking your blood pressure regularly can literally save your life. Well, don't you want your life saved? Yeah, something's at stake there. We're invested. You know what I learned last night on TikTok? That emotions only last 90 seconds. Then after that 90 seconds, everything is just a trigger starting it over again. So you have to train your brain after that first 90 seconds that you cry or you're mad or whatever. It's like, okay, that's past, let me think about something else. And that emotion, the physiological aspects of that emotion leave you. You don't stop thinking about it because it's important to you, and you keep bringing it back up again. I say I learned it on TikTok from some person who talks about this kind of thing, brain stuff. I'm interested in brain stuff because I'm getting older and my brain is folding in on itself. So I'm trying to keep it like a balloon going out. Okay, thesis. Today I'll walk you through why blood pressure matters and how to check it properly, even at home. 1 minute of why it matters. Blood pressure measures the force of blood against artery walls. And it tells you what the numbers mean, the pressure when the heart beats, pressure between beats. I had a student do this last year who was a nurse and brought in her her blood pressure thing and had a student come up and checked it and everything, explained it to us. What are the dangers of high blood pressure? Can lead to heart disease, stroke, kidney failure. Often shows no symptoms until it's done. Who should check it? Everyone over 18, especially with those with risk factors. How do you do it? Well, you need to monitor the cuff one that she brought in, or you can go into the pharmacy and sit in the chair and put your arm in the thing and see what's going on with it. Before it starts, you sit quietly for 5 minutes, rest your arm on a table at heart level, wrap the cuff snugly on your upper arm, press start, stay still while it reads, record the numbers and time of day. Measure at the same time each day. Avoid caffeine, smoking, or exercise 30 minutes before. Take multiple readings and average them. Then interpret your results. Whatever your number is, 120 over 80 is normal. That's what you want, right in there. Elevated is above those numbers. And you see what the high blood pressure stage is. And then hypertensive crisis. Seek immediate help. To recap, checking your blood pressure is quick, easy, and crucial to catching problems early. Make it part of your routine and encourage your loved ones to do the same. Knowing your numbers could be the first step in saving your life. Let me know if you want a printable version or want to turn this into a speech script. Whoa, I didn't even think about that. Script. Please. You don't have to say please, but I do anyway because I like my ChatGPT to be nice back to me. And here you go. Now, is this ethical? Let's get back to that. Come back to me, Radar, if you would. It's important that we're talking about the ethics of AI because it just started a couple of years ago. So we're all learning how to deal with it. Now, some people will try and use AI and hide it. And what are you hiding? The fact that you didn't do something? It's not your work? When I'm teaching my younger, I say younger because they're concurrent high school students, Comp 1 students, is never copy and paste, ever. Why? Because all your teachers have all the software necessary to drop your essay into that, and it will tell us where AI was used or where it was copied or where it was plagiarized. You know what plagiarism is? What's the definition of plagiarism? Yeah, taking credit for something that's not yours specifically, knowledge specifically, when you get down to facts and writing. So I've had the experience of having worked with a plagiarist and I didn't even know it. And then it wound up torpedoing my whole project. And that's why I don't even want to work with anybody anymore. I'd rather do my own stuff and it'd be like barely good than working with somebody whose stuff is really good, but then it turns out they didn't do it in the first place. You know, we have the Academic Integrity Committee here. If a student is perceived as committing a plagiarism violation, then we as faculty are supposed to turn that in. And then that student's supposed to be brought before the committee and then warned. And if they do it again, other things, you can be tossed out of school. But aside from all that stuff, what about the ethics of it? Well, I think it's a real tricky area that we're working in now. Because here you have this PhD level assistant that can help you with anything. You don't know how to change a tire? Put it in ChatGPT. It'll give you all the steps. You don't know how to change your spark plugs? Do that. Anything on your car. It's got access to every car manual of any automobile ever made. So if you don't know why your interior lights are flickering and you ask ChatGPT and you tell it your model of car and everything, it'll tell you, well, check the fuse box, and specifically this fuse. And I found it to be very helpful in a number of situations where otherwise it would have asked Google or gone to YouTube. But Google is going to send you to an advertised site as opposed to ChatGPT or any of your other AIs, Claude or the Gemini or whichever one. You get that information. You typically also get where it came from, especially if you ask the prompt, in the prompt, you know, provide sources for what you're going to tell me. Way back before y'all were born, when Wikipedia first started, many teachers thought this was the death of education. Because now Wikipedia is what everybody goes to. Now people hardly even, you never hear anybody say anything about Wikipedia. And the reason why is because it's gotten so much better because every fact that's in there has a source down below. So you never cite Wikipedia. You go to that Wikipedia article, look for the source, click on that, and then cite that source in your essay or whatever you're writing. So in what we're trying to do, and I think it's important to do, is for you to check with AI. Once you have your outline accomplished, once you have your essay finished, once you have your speech written, pop it in there. How would you improve this? And then that gives you some information, and then when writing, you have a chance to say, I researched this, found this, this, and this, but then I asked ChatGPT, and it gave me these 3 sources that I didn't even know about. And what they say is blah, 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 and blah. So we're still in the area of grappling with how you work with it. And I've talked to you about, there's a company called Suno, it's online. You can take your words, whatever they are, put them in there and say, make me a song in the vein of whatever artist you like, and it'll take your words and make a computer-generated song that sounds like whatever you want to sound it like. So when I was in Nashville last week, they were talking about this, how this has killed the demo market. What's a demo? A demo is like a rough version of whatever it is you have, so a producer can then take it and make it to a really nice, refined version. Well, previously, you went into a studio with a band and you recorded it. You got paid to do that. The engineer sitting in the other room running the controls got paid to do that. The producer who was putting it all together got paid to do that. Guess what? Don't need those people anymore. Because you can go right to Suno.ai, I think that's what it is, or Suno.com, and it will make your song for you. So then what? Do you own it? Only if you subscribe to the platform. But then what? I tried this experiment. Could you then upload it to Spotify and then get streaming revenue from it? No, not this time, because you didn't really make it. So the system is all figuring out what to do with all this stuff, but it is changing things radically. And you're in college at a time where AI is very much part of our lives. So here we are in speech, and you can stress out about whatever speech you're going to do, or you can say just what I've said. Create an outline for a 5-minute speech on how to X. And presto, it's not checking you. It's not asking for your ID. None of that. Now myself, I do pay $19 a month so I can have the most advanced version. Because I want to know what that is. I want to know where we really are on ChatGPT. And that's what I have. It's a little faster maybe. It has access to some things that you don't have access to on the free version. But I'm also trying to figure it out. And what have I done on a student that I was concerned about? I dropped their essay in there. I was like, can you tell me what of this was written by AI? Blammo. Gave it right back to me. So now I have to decide how I'm going to confront that student. Am I going to encourage them to just keep using that? Or am I going to say, you need to start doing your own work? It gets back to that difference between sympathy and empathy, which came up over the last couple of weeks, if you've heard that talk. Right? That empathy and sympathy are two different things. Sympathy is when you feel for someone. Empathy is when you feel with someone. So if somebody comes to me with a late essay or some excuse as to why they can't be here and do their speech, sympathy is feel for you, but deadline's a deadline, so you missed it and you get what you get. Empathy is, I've also had challenges in life. I've also gotten sick. I've also had flat tires. I've also had situations where a deadline was coming right up on me, so I understand that. So empathy is, I'll give you another 2 days. Those are different concepts. So you can write a sympathy card, which is say, sorry for your loss. Empathy is, sorry for your loss because I've also lost my grandma. I'm with you on that. Now this came up last week in my other class. I started to talk about it a little bit, but just this concept of sympathy and empathy are not the same thing. And you can have one, but it doesn't mean you have both. And empathy is important among educated people. If you can understand someone else's perspective and what they're thinking, you don't have to think that way. But if you can understand why they're coming from that point of view, you're a wiser person. If you're not willing to entertain why they're coming from that point of view, you're stuck in your own world. People who are able to see other people's perspectives grow more. You become more mature, you become a more whole person. Doesn't mean you give up what you think or your own values, your own thoughts. But because if you're the educated people, wind up becoming the managers. So you need to be able to see everybody's point of view in order to be an effective manager, an effective supervisor. So back to AI. I don't care, personally, if you use it. It shouldn't write your speech for you, though. But here's the other thing about speaking. You know what I prefer is you don't read, you talk. Well, if you come up here and just start. In a speech about meteorology, a student said if modern methods of weather forecasting had existed in 1900, the Galveston hurricane disaster would never have taken place. Then he was off to other matters, leaving his listeners to puzzle over what the Galveston hurricane was, when it happened, and what kind of destruction it wreaked. The speaker assumed his audience already knew these things, but they were not experts on meteorology or on American history. Okay, so I'm just reading. That's not talking. That's not speaking to you. That's not speaking to your audience. I'm a good reader, but it doesn't mean it's effective speaking to read. So I've done lots of narration for lots of documentaries and all kinds of stuff. So when I read something, because of my voice quality, it sounds good and people use it and it's all fine. But it's not the same as talking to your listeners. And 3 things are really important with regard to your speaking, and I think we have just about all of it figured out. Who's our fastest talker? Bailey is our fastest talker. And so what I've said to Bailey is, slow down a little bit. Give us some time to absorb what you have to say. And Hunter's not here today, and I'm not picking on him, but he moved around a lot. He was always like, back and forth. And so we don't want to have too many crazy motions. You want to at least be stable. And of course, using our hands is important. I think everybody's gotten to that point. And I've talked about how we try not to get too outrageous with our hands. I'm looking at the screen, I'm staying in the screen here, right? That I told you before that I learned from the 4-H kids that when they do speeches, they have to stay in this box. They can't move outside of that. And then also volume. Right now, the air conditioner is off, I believe. But if you have a softer voice and that air conditioner is on, you need to raise your volume a little bit. And we all have an outside voice and an inside voice, a voice we use with our familiar relatives and friends, and a voice that we use while we're being polite or with someone we don't know. And sometimes you need to raise your voice to get it out there. This is something, probably our softest speaker might be Kim, because she's quiet when she gets up here. And this class will not change all of your techniques, but it can make you aware of them. So you can be a little bit louder. I think that's a good point, though. Don't overestimate what the audience knows. And also, why is this important? I think it was Marianne's first speech, the informational speech. She was talking about all the health stuff and sourdough, right? And why that's important and why you should only have a few ingredients. And it's interesting that when you hear a speech, even if you know some of this stuff, it's confirmation. So when I was going to the grocery store yesterday to pick up my supplies for the week, I was looking at everything going, okay, Marianne would want me to get this one because it's only got nuts, dates, almonds, and whatever else was in it. I found these bars that only have like 4 items.
Is it like RX bars?
Yes, yeah, those guys, yeah. So the thing is, everything's a little pricey now is a problem. So Aldi has their own version of those now, but they're not quite as good. So you have to decide, they're the same contents, but they're just not quite as good. So you have to decide, can I afford the nicer ones this week? Or because it's a week from payday, should I get the cheaper ones? Well, last week I got the cheaper ones, so I went ahead and splurged for the nicer ones yesterday. But you don't know who you're going to impact when you're talking. And that's why you want to relate this to the audience. And what I said to Marianne early on in her first speech was, well, why does it matter to us? Why does it matter to you? And so she put that in her second speech. We're all college students. We're trying to stay healthy. So as a result of that, these are some good things for you to think about. So your audience is really important. How do you relate that to your audience? We don't want to be too technical. Important terms like dystopia or dystopian environment, you need to break that down. But you want to avoid getting into the real specific technical terms because it slows down your speech. You got to break that down. Not to overemphasize Marianne, but her first speech, she told us a couple of really long words that were part of the chemicals that they put in the food. You kind of breeze by them. And as a listener, I wanted those slower and more defined, even in seeing them maybe on a screen. That way I could look at those words and think about them. So if we do use a technical term that nobody else has ever heard before, we need to break it down. I think it was last spring, empathy. I brought up empathy. And because of everything that's been happening in our society lately, I brought that up and I asked what empathy was, and nobody could answer that question. And I was kind of surprised. Thank you. So I broke it down because I just figured everybody knew what it was, but they don't. And so that's why I've brought it up again as an example. Avoid abstractions. So keep our descriptions concrete, things we can really understand. Personalize this thing. It should be something from your world, something that's important to you. And we always talk and write about things better that we care about. So if you have some, like whatever thing number 5 is on your list, that might be the thing you finally had to work up to. Or it might be the one that you shouldn't do. Typically your first or second idea are going to be the things that you're going to think about doing. But personalize it. Explain why it's important to you, and then also why it's important to us. that global statement at the end. I've done this, so can you. This can enrich your life. This might save your life. Being creative. It's hard to quantify creativity, what that even means. So I played the State Fair last Tuesday, and I had 2 sets, one at 4:15 and one at 7:45. And I thought, well, I'm going to just make a little video in between my sets. And all I'm going to do is take my monopod, which is a 1-stick camera holder, and put my phone on top of it. My song is about going to the fair by yourself. And so I made myself a character of going to the fair by myself. I think I got just enough time to play it, but this is my creativity. I'm going to play it for you. We're into class here. Can you put this on the screen? Radar? And I'm going to get it going. The computer? Okay, here we go. I like going to the fair by myself. I eat lots of things no good for my health. Nobody telling me how long I get to pause. Looking at a dress made of paper straws. Sometimes solitaire is not so bad. After all the sour hours you've already had. If you ask me to go when I say no, not 'cause I'm being rude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. I like going on my favorite rides alone. When they're over, I can jump right back on. Himalayan air, cool on my face. Carousel swings fling me around over multicolored midway space. Sometimes solitaire is not so bad. After all the sour hours you've already had. If you ask me to go when I say no, not 'cause I'm being rude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. I made friends with a blue ribbon chic and a carny who could see I needed some sleep. Had a big old pop and some deep fried bubble gum. Ate a donut burger, didn't drop a crumb. But I had to draw the line at a sugar-coated scorpion. Sometimes solitaire is not so bad. After all the sour hours you've already had. If you ask me to go when I say no, not 'cause I'm being rude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. So that's my creativity for the weekend and what I did last week. So I encourage you to use your own creativity, make some things happen. All right, Wednesday proposals. See you then.